The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of Table Topics, Carlos. Right?
Table Topics are back, and remember, it's Wednesday night. If you're watching this, this show is a new show.
Yeah, it's a new show, but we're here a day prior. So supposedly all the election results will be in, right? We'll know all the elections. We won't be like a third world country, which we're turning into, because now our elections, we heard, are going to take up to weeks to find out who that is. Now, I remember maybe 20 years ago, we would say in this country, that's like a third world country that does that.
Yeah.
And that's what we're turning into.
Well, come on. I want to invite those that had the votes under the beds and boxes under your mattress.
Exactly.
Just bring them all in today. You had to be in today.
But you know what's interesting is there's I think it's a senator race, Oz and Fetterman, and apparently there are thousands of mail-in ballots that have no signatures on them and have no dates. And Mr. Fetterman is going to court to count them. Now, why aren't we following like the rules? Why aren't we following the rules? Didn't we learn what happened in 2020? And now we're trying to repeat that. So one other thing before I play this clip is in Arizona, there's a big race against the Democrat and this young guy, and then Kerry Lake, who's running for the governorship. So what did I hear today when I was on my break? Maricopa County, which is the county that is Phoenix, Arizona, the capital and the biggest city, 20% of their machines are not reading the ballots. Do we not check things? Do we not know what happened? In 2020, there were people protesting there for weeks because they weren't confident in what the voting was, and we're having problems with this. This is like a Keystone Cop thing or like a comedy. It's just amazing that we can't get this thing right in a first world country. That's why I tease you and say we are turning into a third world country right now.
Two things that I don't like the elections on our country. It's two things that I don't like.
Yeah.
Number one, not all states have paper backup.
Yep.
That's number one.
Yep.
Okay, because you can go wrong. You can go very good at math, but sometimes you need those receipts.
Yeah.
You need to count the receipts and look at the receipts. And number two, having elections on a Tuesday, because a lot of people get out of work at 6. They get home. They don't feel like leaving home to go vote.
Yeah. Well, in the north, you're right. Up here in the north, because it's cold.
And having experience from European countries that they vote on Sunday, because 80% of the people don't work, and they go out and they go vote, and the other 20% that still can make it after work. Okay. So that's two things that I don't like on elections. It's Tuesday. I think I don't know why they do that during the week, but I think they could bring more people to the voting places if they had done elections during the week. Plus, we don't have to close schools. Okay, because guess what? Today I drive school buses. There was no schools today. So guess what? I lost a day of work. Because of elections. So I mean, it's so much that can help if we change that to a weekend day.
Let me ask you this:
I don't know. What do you think about? On a weekend day?
I don't have an issue with that. I want people to go in to vote. These paper ballots, and I'm going to ask Michelle to play a clip in about a minute. But prior to COVID, everybody went in. If you wanted an absentee ballot, if you were in the military, you were an older person that couldn't basically leave the house, you got an absentee ballot. Now we have this early voting that can be mailed to your house. I got ballots that said, do you want to do early voting? And everybody in my house got it. You know, I mean, that's fine, but not every state or city is like Massachusetts that take people off the voting rolls that have died. There are people still on the voting rolls that have died. So it just makes it really ripe for fraud. And I just want to play a clip. This was before the 2020 clip. And no matter what, you know, no matter what you think, this was the Attorney General at the time, Barr. And it's funny, you hear this clip. But after that, he said there was no problem. But it's interesting to see this clip. And if people don't believe it, it was on CNN. This is courtesy of CNN. This is CNN, courtesy.
The best station.
Because people won't believe, people don't believe anything unless it's on CNN or MSNBC, right? So this is CNN. Go ahead, Michelle. Courtesy.
You know, he said if you expand mail-in voting, this is the president.
This is, you know,
it's reckless.
Well, this is a you know, sort of cheap talk to get around the fundamental problem, which is the bipartisan commission chaired by Jimmy Carter and James Baker said back in 2009 that mail-in voting is fraught with the risk of fraud and coercion.
But since then,
and until this administration,
they haven't proved it.
Let me talk.
Yeah, please.
And since that time, there have been in the newspapers, in networks, academic studies saying it is open to fraud and coercion. The only time the narrative changed is after this administration came in. But elections that have been held with mail have found substantial fraud and coercion. For example, we indicted someone in Texas, 1,700 ballots collected from people who could vote. He made them out and voted for the person he wanted to. Okay? Because that kind of thing happens with mail-in ballots, and everyone knows that.
But there are individual cases, but as far as widespread fraud, we haven't seen that since.
Well, we haven't had the kind of widespread use of mail-in ballots that's being proposed. We've had absentee ballots from people who request them from a specific address. Now what we're talking about is mailing them to everyone on the voter list when everyone knows those voter lists are inaccurate. People who should get them don't get them, which is what has been one of the major complaints in states that have tried this in municipal elections. And people who get them are not the right people. They're people who have replaced the previous occupant, and they can make them out. And sometimes multiple ballots come to the same address with a whole several generations of occupants. Do you think that's a way to run a vote?
Well, the only thing I'm saying is that so far we haven't seen widespread fraud. But
so far we haven't tried it. Well, and the point is,
but a lot of us. There are several states that only have mail-in voting, including a Republican state.
Well, this is playing with fire. This is playing with fire. We're a very closely divided country here. And if people have to have confidence in the results of the election and the legitimacy of the government, and people trying to change the rules to this methodology, which as a matter of logic is very open to fraud and coercion, is reckless and dangerous. And people are playing with fire.
Well, I will point out there are 5 states that only have mail-in voting, including Utah and Colorado, Washington State, Oregon, Hawaii. And they've reported over the years they've had virtually no problems. But who's trying to change the rules right now?
I would say the people who want to go to mass mail-in ballots.
But you understand why. There is a coronavirus pandemic. Right. And there are a lot of people potentially, if they waited long lines when they go to the polls, they could get sick, especially older people or people with underlying conditions. As a result, a lot of people want to change the rules so they don't have to go wait in long lines. Well, they don't have to touch all this.
And the appropriate way to deal with that is, number one, arrangements at the polls that protect people, which can be done. And number two, people who have pre-existing conditions and are particularly vulnerable can get an absentee ballot. I have no problem with people. I voted by absentee ballot, not by mail. I actually went to the office to cast my vote. But absentee ballots are fine.
All right, let's move on and talk a little bit about...
So is that not interesting? Did he say that he thought there would be a problem with mail-in ballots? And then what happened after the election? He totally turned the tables, did he not, compared to what he was saying there? He said Jimmy Carter and Baker said they did a study on it, and it was, when you do that, it's wrought with fraud. So it's just interesting when I saw that clip.
But he was working under a different administration.
Okay.
He was working under Trump. So at that time, one vote that would become illegal, it's a big issue. But we, like he said, we had problems before. It was not just in 2020 that we had that problem. We had problems before. Why
but
why
not
we not
widespread.
fixing?
You weren't listening. It was not widespread, according to the CNN person. All right. All I'm saying is that it's just interesting. We've really moved away with, that basically if it's a Republican or a conservative person that's in, we don't believe what they say. Now I look at that. Look at the Justice Department now. They've come down with all these different things that they weren't supposed to be doing. You know? So it's like we got to get back to believing who's in office. The Department of Justice is, no matter who is in office, we have to do the right thing. And it's not really happening right now. We see that. We see it's not happening.
I totally agree that, under COVID, we run in one way. I understand that.
So why has it not changed then?
But
why hasn't it changed?
Now should be changed.
Yeah, but that's
now
not going to happen.
Changed.
That's not going to happen.
Just for the fact that, and believe me, if somebody gets a vote and it's not registered to vote and signs that vote and sends that vote in, he should be, he should be in jail. Period. That's it. Yeah. Because when one start getting jail time, the other's going to stop.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree.
That's number one. Number two is we getting into a country that you don't want to leave the house. That's fine. We're going to get your kid for school. You don't want to make food. That's okay. We're going to send you a box of food home.
Exactly.
That's the country that we going into.
Yep.
Okay. So that's why you see people. Okay. I never remember 30 years I'm here. How lazy can you be? Not even taking your pajamas pants out to go out.
So
the less they do, the more they get. Yeah. That's the problem. And the government that's giving these people everything for them to be and behave that way.
Exactly. So look what's happened all through history, recent history, right? What's happened when they do that? When the government pretty much becomes your dad or your mom, right? What happens is they control everything in your life. That's what happened in the Soviet Union. And I think CJ had a good quote that I just read, and I had seen it before. The people that vote are not important. It's the people who count the vote. And that was from Joseph Stalin from Russia. So he knows, you know what I mean, because he ended up turning Russia into a communist country. You know what I mean? So it's just interesting that we've become so divided that we don't even look at common sense anymore. And I find that all right, it's your side. It's not my side, it's this side. It's like, I'm looking at what's right and what's common sense. So
and what scares me more too is the fact that if it's not that way, we're going to change the law. So it can become that way. If it's not that way, it's for a reason that's not that way. It's been for that reason for hundreds of years that was not that way. Why now we need to change it to accommodate you? You know what I'm saying?
That's what's happened. And you don't think the people that are getting all these different things that are free, they're going to vote for the people, everybody looks for their own self-interest.
They're not even going to vote. That's even worse. That's even worse. They're not even going to vote. Yeah. So do it like in European countries. If you getting a check from the government and the government don't see you participating on the system that's going to give you back, guess what? You're not getting anything else. Okay? Because you need to support the government. It's like you don't cut the fingers that feed you. You know what I'm saying? So if you're not being voting and we lose that service, guess what? It's your fault because you didn't participate on the system.
I'm hoping it's going to get better, but Carlos, over the last 2 years,
I don't know.
Over the last 2 years, 5 million people have walked into this country. 5 million people. That's like what? Philadelphia? The size of Philadelphia? How can we sustain bringing in 5 million people in 2 years? We don't have, we are like at what, $30 million and $30 trillion in debt. and we're letting 5 million people walk in here that we have to educate, we have to feed, house, medical.
Here,
this is just something right here that people should be like,
that brings you to the question we have that we have voting today, the license for undercommon for people that not have documents, for illegal people. So here's the thing.
It's not illegal, undocumented. Please use the right terms.
No, it's illegal. If they don't have a social security like I have, it's illegal.
Please, just say undocumented to me. You agree? He's just getting a little. I'm getting him freaking riled up here, but that's anyway.
Here's the thing. I understand the family. They come in here, looking for a better life, and we need to have the system to support that family.
Yep.
Okay, which they're going to work, find jobs, pay their tax, participate, even not being legally here for a period of time until because they have to wait and they have to follow the system and become, one day the room
permanent
become
resident
available.
or a citizen, whatever.
Correct. Yeah. Now you have a bunch of kids in here, 20s, on the 20s. They don't have families. Yeah. They live in here by themselves. Okay, they rent an apartment for 2 months. They don't pay. The next month they find another apartment. Okay, so these people don't have a purpose in life. So we don't need these people here. Yeah. So why are we going to give them a drive license? I don't understand. Yeah. Why? I have no problem giving the drive license to that parent that needs to bring the kids to school and has to go to work to feed their family. I have no problem with that. But you see a lot of this young kids in here that they should be there taking care of their families, their parents and their aunts, and you know what I'm saying?
This happened here, but it happened in Europe back in 2015. Remember when that was big surge of people went to Europe? And that's what happened. They said 90% of the people were young men.
Yes.
Okay. So my thing is, the media keeps on saying it's women and families, it's families. No, it was young men. People don't tell the truth now. So you really got to look and see what's really going on, not to listen to them because we know it's not the truth a lot of times. Yeah. And when you lose faith in different things, it makes people more. Just come out and say, this is what the truth is, whether people like it or not. But when you don't tell the whole truth, at least for me, it makes me more suspicious. But I'm going to go off because I know you have some clips that you want to play for the local elections.
Yes.
So why don't you, I don't want to take you off
and, no, it's fine. I mean, we need to mix the show sometimes. So today it's election day, okay? The show's going to be on tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yep.
Which is elections. It's over, and we already know the results, and we can pretty much already tell some questions on the ballot how they're going to go.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure one of them is the train.
Yeah.
Okay. So yesterday I attended a very informative information about what is coming with the train. So part of it we already know the rent's going up. Okay, people being pushed out their properties because they cannot afford longer to get. But even worse is the fact that we are buying something that's about to go bankrupt. So you will work all your life, okay, and you will buy a company that you know that's going to be bankrupt in 10 years, pretty much. But who cares? Nobody cares. The politicians don't care. Okay, because it's right there. It's right there. Yeah. Okay, so I found a couple in Boston TV stations that did some investigations on it, and I would like to show a couple of videos on.
And what are these courtesy of what? Channel 5 in Boston?
This is Channel 5.
Channel 5 Boston.
Channel 5.
Okay. WGBH, I think.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
This lengthy and expensive project is through. Riders will have more ways to pay to get on the TN commuter rail, with a credit or debit card or by tapping your phone. The T says it will make the entire system more convenient and efficient, but the project is already years behind schedule and hundreds of millions of dollars over budget. To learn about this complex undertaking known as Automated Fare Collection 2.0, we went to a Massachusetts transportation expert.
I think taxpayers and fare payers should be asking some very tough questions about whether they're getting a good deal on AFC 2.0.
Chris Dempsey of Transportation for Massachusetts has been watching the project since it was launched in 2017, as its cost rose from $723 million to $935 million, and as its completion date was extended from 2020 to 2024. It was sold as a much-needed way to modernize the existing fare system, which is now 15 years old. Did the T need this new automated fare collection system?
I would say that this project is more of a nice to have than a necessity.
So a nice to have for nearly $1 billion?
Look, it's concerning. We had the smart card, the tap card, the Charlie card that we all know. And it's not clear to me that we needed to rush to the front of the line to move to that new type of technology.
And Dempsey says it's not just the need that's questionable, but also the contract the MBTA cut with Cubic Corporation, the private company doing it. Cubic installed a similar fare collection program for New York City's massive subway and bus system for $656 million, far less than the $935 million the T is expecting to pay. Cubic says the two contracts are not comparable, but Dempsey disagrees.
The MBTA is a much smaller system, something like 1/10 of the size of the New York MTA. Yet our contract actually cost more, and the New York system is now fully installed.
When we asked the MBTA for an interview to explain the nearly $1 billion cost of this 3,000-page contract, they said they wouldn't go on camera to answer our questions. The T released a written statement. It didn't address the soaring cost of the new fare collection system. It said the T intentionally slowed down the project. By pursuing a phased approach and making key changes to the project, the T was able to incorporate community feedback and focus on equity for bus customers and reduced fare customers. A T official explained, current fare vending machines will be replaced by new ones that dispense Charlie cards, and additional machines will be available on streets by some bus stations and Green Line stops. Cubic, the project's contractor, says it is confident it will be able to deliver a next-generation fare system for Boston. When you think of AFC 2.0, what goes through your mind?
$1 billion. That's what I think of, $1 billion of our tax money.
Mela Miles with the T-Riders Union has opposed the automated fare project from the beginning.
I think we could be much more creative with the use of our transportation dollars. If the T redirected some of this money to actually make the riders' experience better and to make it a cleaner, safer MBTA for our communities.
As much as we've tried to dig into where this project is and what its chances of success are, we don't know enough because there has not been enough transparency.
For all the talk about next-generation fare technology, one stubborn fact remains for the T, and that's the $10 billion backlog of maintenance and repairs that eventually need to get done. Karen Anderson, 5 Investigates.
Concerns tonight are already prompting new federal oversight for the MBTA. And now 5 Investigates is digging into another potential crisis for the T. The agency is on the edge of a financial cliff. Our Mike Bodette found pandemic relief stopped the bleeding for now, but that money is about to dry up.
I've been riding the T my whole life.
Austin Saw has a love-hate relationship with the MBTA.
It's really great and reliable when it's working.
But when it's not,
I've been late to meetings or missed really important events or moments.
Saw takes the bus from Charlestown.
Thank you.
Then walks to the Orange Line at North Station. On his way to Back Bay Station.
If I see something, I tell them.
He regularly tweets at the T when anything's amiss, from broken equipment to real-time delays.
I really hope to see the T improve overall, and not just reliability, but maintenance across the board.
But it could all be wishful thinking if the MBTA doesn't clean up its money mess.
We talked to him on Friday.
5 Investigates teamed up with Northeastern University's School of Journalism for a closer look at the T's shaky financial footing and the reasons behind it. Ridership plummeted during the pandemic, but federal relief funds totaling nearly $2 billion offset the losses. However, that money is running out.
We've had a bit of a reprieve, but I think doomsday is finally coming.
Brian Kane is executive director of the MBTA Advisory Board, which provides public oversight of the T.
They call it the financial cliff, and we fall off the cliff in 2023.
The operating budget keeps the T up and running, and it's on the verge of being hundreds of millions of dollars in the red, a deficit that could jump to $542 million in fiscal year 26. And that doesn't include the capital budget, which pays for things like new vehicles and major maintenance and repair projects. The Mass Taxpayers Foundation says the T needs $25 billion over the next decade, with only $12 billion available, leaving a $13 billion gap.
We found that most riders, like over 70%, were actually unaware of the budget deficit.
Northeastern students surveyed MBTA riders online and documented one of the many problems impacting the T's bottom line.
So they just open all the doors and everyone just walks on.
Nearly 70% of those surveyed acknowledged riding for free at some point. Just last week, we witnessed no one collecting fares on this commuter rail train into Boston.
Any amount of problem is a problem.
David Panagor is the MBTA's chief administrative officer. He says the T is working to make sure all fares are collected. But that's just one issue for the financially strapped system. How bad is it?
Short term, we're doing okay. Longer term, we're severely challenged.
A problem exacerbated by the pandemic.
Our challenge is to figure out how long term the T can identify revenue.
Certainly the concerns are that they could result in service cuts or fare increases.
State Senator Brendan Crichton is chairperson of the Joint Committee on Transportation. He points to last year's bipartisan infrastructure law as an opportunity to tap into federal funds. But that won't solve everything.
I think we do all need to take a serious look in the mirror of what does FY24, FY25, FY26 look like.
At this point, it doesn't look good. It's not clear when the legislature will tackle this MBTA money mess, but it's something our elected officials, including our next governor, are going to have to address. Mike Bodette, 5 Investigates.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue. I mean, MBTA has problems. There have been issues, I know, with the pandemic that has changed a lot of public transportation because people are not going back into the job sites still, especially in these big cities. So yeah, I mean, are there issues? Yeah, of course there are.
My biggest fears too is with this. Well, you're already paying. You're not going to pay more. Well, right now we're not sitting on the table. They're not asking us for money because we're not sitting on the table.
Yeah.
When we become and sitting on the table, they're going to say that we don't pay enough because $13 billion. You don't think that's going to bring our tax level or our participation level a lot higher than what we pay now for $1.2 million, whatever it is?
Yeah, anything's possible.
That's the part that, and they passed a law that I have another video to show probably next week, is they already passed the law. By 2035, they have to change the train to electric.
Oh.
The law already passed. Yeah. It's on the books. 2035, the trains has to be electric. So you're buying a broken company for 10 years, and in 10 years, you're going to have to change everything that you bought because nothing will be.
Yeah. Well, we got to blame that on the politicians. Because the planet is dying, you know what I mean? So anyway.
Here is. You ask for the train, now don't complain.
Okay. With that, have a good night.